This is the What's New in Solid Edge 2023. I'm basically going to go through all of the major changes that were introduced this year and some of the changes, new features, etc. Here's the agenda of what we're going over. Of course, we are CamLogic, and we're going over Solid Edge 2023. And we're going to start here with the user interface and experience. Changes to the UI in this case are the command ribbon, pathfinder, and the icons used in Solid Edge. As you can see, some of these images here, there's a few changes involved. The icons look a little bit newer, more modern. There's a consistent appearance for Solid Edge throughout the entire accelerator portfolio, so that when you are switching between programs and softwares, whether it's Solid Edge portfolio or the entire accelerator portfolio, they all have a similar look and feel. Another change is the vertical command bar. These are examples of the command bar for a few different commands, but now we have a vertical command bar rather than the horizontal one we had in previous versions. It was redone so that it's a bit more clear. You have words so that you know what each icon is a representation of. It helps get through your commands a little easier and know exactly what the command is asking for. It's also really easy to just drag it around, move it to a different location in your work area. You can even snap it to the edge of a window if you'd like. Another big change to the context toolbar, or to the user interface, is this context toolbar. This is a feature that was actually added in 2022, but it was only added for this sketch environment. It has been added to the part environments for both ordered and synchronous, as well as the sheet metal versions too. You can, whenever you select an object, this box appears near your object, and you are then able to select one of these commonly used commands that are available. This allows you to do work a lot faster, less mouse travel. You don't have to always keep going to the top, back up to your ribbon bar all the time. You can just select your object, select your action, and move on. The next couple of changes I'm going to go over are in the assembly environment, and you'll see the UI changes as I work. I'm going to do a few demonstrations shortly. So in the assembly environment, one of the first things they added were some new assembly features. These include the swept cutout, union, slot, and subtract. They have these are now available in the assembly environment. Previously, these were part commands only. They will work on all components regardless of the level in the assembly. So if the component you're trying to put these features on is in a subassembly, it'll still apply just fine. And this can also be used with both active and inactive components. So you don't need to worry too much about the state of your assembly when you're trying to use these commands. So the first one is the swept cutout. You can see takes your cross section, sweeps it across the part. It can be used with single or multiple paths and cross sections. You can also use it on more than one body as well. Another one is the slot. It's similar to the slot in the part environment. You can use one or more sketch elements, and just like the previous command, you can do it with one or more target parts. And then one of the last ones here is this union command. This takes multiple parts from your assembly and then combines them into one component. So you have one body with all of the selected components. So I'm going to show some of these features now inside Solid Edge. So here's the part that I'm going to work with. You can see I've got a part. It's actually two parts here with a couple of paths already set up. I can do my swept cutout. Just like I would in the regular part environment, I can select my path, then I can select my cross sections. In this case, I have 2 different cross sections, and I can preview. Unlike the part environment, I do have to select the bodies that I want to apply it to. In this case, it is just this one top piece. As you can see, it follows the path I provided and goes from the starting cross section to the ending cross section. I'm also going to show this again with just a single path and cross section. However, this time it's going to be with multiple parts. So I was going to show a few more sketches here. I'm going to select my path, then my cross section, and then I have to select my target parts. If I were only to select one, then it would only apply to the one parts. As you can see, the cutout was applied to both parts in my assembly and follows the path all the way around. And then lastly, I was going to show the slot command, just like it would in a part. Let's select my sketch. And then I can choose my extent. And then direction and the body that I'm going to apply it to. As you can see, it cut out that whole slot area and the command is finished. So this can be used to apply it to multiple parts or multiple components in your assembly, and it doesn't matter what level of the assembly they are at. The next thing I was going to show is it's kind of a fun new feature. I think it's really cool to look at. It's the visual explode. It is separate from the explode that some of you might know of in the ERA environment or explode, render, animate. This is a much more easy to use, simple version that is good to just see how things are put together. So this one I'm going to use an assembly with just a few parts in it. I go over to my tools and visual explode. I get this little slider here. And I have 2 options. The first one is just the normal explode. And as you can see, it explodes all my parts in, kind of out away from each other. And of course, I can collapse it back down as I drag that bar. But I also get the option to explode stepwise. What this does is allows me to explode the subassemblies first, and it does it in order. So, the topmost level subassemblies, then the next subassemblies, and then their subassemblies, so on and so forth until you get down to just the parts. I think this way, for the most part, makes the most sense to me. I do think it's a pretty cool new feature, helps visualize how the assembly was put together and things like that. So those are the changes in the assembly environment. Next, we're going to go into the parts. There was actually quite a few changes done here, mostly in the ordered environment. So the first thing they added, and a lot of these all go together, but they've added regions in the ordered environment. Regions were unique to synchronous before Solid Edge 2023. And it's a separate object from the sketch itself, but it allows you to select the region and then do actions such as extrude or revolve, etc. They can automatically be created when you are creating or editing a sketch. And then, of course, they can be turned on and off from the Pathfinder by right-clicking your sketch or You can actually do it in the graphic environment too. And when a region is selected, the context toolbar will display any relevant commands, as you can see here, with both the extrude, edit, revolve, etc. They've also done a unification of the add remove commands in the ordered environment. And what I'm referring to there is previously there was extrude, cut, revolve, and then revolved cut. Now it's just extrude and revolve. Regardless of whether you are trying to add or remove material, it's going to be the extrude command or the revolve command. There's a setting on the command bar to change which method you want to use. The other thing they've added is a new option to add bodies with these commands. So if you'd like to add a new body to your part, you can choose that option, and it will add material, but it will add it as a separate body, so it is not the original or a part of the original design body. So I was going to show a little bit of that here. Before that, though, I did want to show one other thing, which is the synchronous commands in ordered. Like I said, these all sort of go together. The regions are involved and make it possible for these synchronous commands to exist. So these move, rotate, and offset faces commands did exist in Solid Edge, but they've been completely overhauled and redone. They are now the true synchronous version that you would have in the synchronous environment. You get your steering wheel. You get to push and pull the faces like you would in synchronous. You get your design intent panel, and the end result, however, is a ordered feature in the Pathfinder. So it is a synchronous command, but the steps that it makes are in that in your Pathfinder as an ordered feature, and I'll show you that here. So this is just a basic part to line this up. So I'm in ordered, like you can see here. And if I just select all these faces, move faces, you can select everything, right click, so that I've chosen what I wish to move, and then use my steering wheel to make my changes. So that's just like I would do it in the synchronous environment. However, when I'm done, I can click finish, and rather than features like I would get in synchronous, I get this move step in my part history. What's interesting about it too is that by clicking edit definition, I can actually retroactively change my design intent. So if I didn't actually want to keep the symmetry there, I can just turn symmetry off, things of that nature. There's also, like I said, other commands such as rotate faces. So if I wanted to change the maybe these faces here, I can use the rotate command instead of the move faces command and make these a little bit wider. And just like before, I also have the ability to go back and change things retroactively so that I have my design intent with symmetry in two places. So if I turn it off of there, I lose my symmetry on the YX plane. If I turn it off here, only one side is going to be changed. And then lastly, we have this offset faces command. This would be just like it would in, if you were to offset a face in another, in any other part or environment. Let me see if I can do this here. So if I were to offset, I could say 5 millimeters. Oh, so there isn't. I don't have a great example for the offset faces today, but it is another command option. And just like the other two, you can use the rotate faces, the design intent, and your steering wheel, just like the others. Another thing that was added in this part environment is the tolerances and standard tolerances have been added to holes as an attribute. So previously, you would typically add these tolerances once you've created your drawings. Now, this is actually a part and an attribute of the whole feature itself. You'll see why this was added later on when we get to another section. It's all part of a big push for 3D PMI, and we will get to that in a bit later. The fit class tolerance has been added for both the hole diameter, counterbore diameter, and the standard are selected based on whichever units you're using. And you can see the list of attributes that the tolerances have been added for. They've also, as a little bit of a side note, they added a left-handed thread option for those times that it does come in handy. But you can see an example of these dialog boxes here. You click it, you can either choose unit tolerance or a standard fit, and it has your different options available. The reason that is nice, by the way, is, and like I said, you'll see this coming up, but when we get into 3D PMI, and it also applies to 2D drawings, you won't have to type out your whole callouts as much. You won't have to, save those things. They will be an attribute and a part of the whole that you made. Something I wanted to bring up real quick is a new addition on the licensing side of things. This is value-based licensing. It's a little bit different than what we are used to with a typical license file, where you purchased an add-on and you have that add-on. Well, now they've introduced value-based licensing, which uses tokens. It's beneficial because it gives you access to a variety of solid edge add-ons with just one purchase. You don't have to individually go buy each of the add-ons. And I will show a list of each one in a second. But the way this works is that your site or your sold to ID, you would have a pool of tokens. Each add-on that's available here has a token value. When the add-on is checked out and being used by someone, the corresponding value of tokens is reserved. The numbers that you see on the right here, these are more like placeholders. These are not the actual values. However, as an example, if I'm using ExpressRoute, I would have 7 tokens reserved while I'm using it. Once I'm done and I've closed and I'm no longer using ExpressRoute, the reserved tokens are returned to the pool. And so those 7 tokens can be used either by me to use a different add-on, or somebody else can use those tokens for a different purpose. So these are the token packs. There's 25 and 50 token packs. And then here on the left is the product list that the tokens can be used for. So basically, just the 1 token pack gives you access to each of those add-ons. And I do want to just emphasize that it's only add-ons. There's no token or value-based licensing for the base solid edge product. It's only the add-ons on the left there. And those are the token costs. And so if you were to, as an example, if you used Generative Design Pro and checked out 25 tokens, you made your design, and then you sent it back, and you have your 25 tokens to use again, you could then check out 2 seats of Simulation Standard, all with just the 1 pack. And part of the reason I've introduced that is a lot of these features up and coming, such as the product manufacturing information and the drawings and MBD, a lot of these new features can be utilized with the value-based licensing. So first command or first addition that they've added in 2023 as part of the advanced PMI set is auto dimensions. This is just a way to quickly dimension a part. It adds, it's only in the part environment, and you can create schemes, tolerances, whole callouts. There's a whole lot of customization that you can do here, actually. And kind of like you can see on the right, it creates a bunch of different, or adds the dimensions throughout your model. And I can show that to you here real fast. So. I'll use this part here. I need to go to apologies. Everyone has licensing issues, I believe. I might have to get that. I might have to show that at another time. The basically, the dimensions are automatically created. You select your part, and it populates the dimensions around the model. Another one, now this is not available right now, however, it should be available soon. They said, Siemens said around update 2 is where they are, their goal is. Basically, a dimension checker is a command that will determine whether your parts or different aspects of your parts are under, over constrained, or perhaps they're missing tolerances. It gives you a nice map of colors so that you can see which areas you need to add or remove dimensions from. And it also, creates an interactive report so that you can, easily remedy the under constrained or over constrained areas. And then I believe the last command here for the drawings PMI and MBD, oh, there's actually one more after this, is arrange dimensions. So arrange dimensions lets you take the dimensions that you've already placed on your model and make them fit a bit better. As you can see in the bottom example, it takes those dimensions, sets them up so that you have both stacks and chains of dimensions, makes them close to the part so that they're easy to identify, easy to read. Now, it does not work with that auto dimension, and that is because the auto dimension command creates its own group, and you can actually turn the auto dimension PMI labels on and off as a group. This command is specifically for the dimensions in PMI that you've placed yourself, and to help keep those organized and easily readable. There's a couple of settings here. So by default, it just arranges everything and it pushes everything outside of your model. It can, you can deselect and select using these tools so that you're not getting every single dimension, or perhaps you only want to arrange half of them. And then there's also this arrange to area where you do a fence select, and you are then able to you do a fence select, and then you are able to keep the dimensions out of the area you created, rather than just outside of the only the part. Another addition that they've made is the model view palette. This is something that I was actually quite excited about. I think it's a really good way to access your model views. The model views themselves are not new. These have been in Solid Edge. However, they were only accessible through the Pathfinder. It was kind of tricky to figure out which model view had what in it. So you had a bunch of these views, but no real specification as to which view was, had which dimensions. You could name them, but that only goes so far. With the model view palette now, we get this dialog box that has an image of each of our model views, and it's taken straight from the model view with dimensions, annotations, and all. And it creates a very easy way to interact with them. It's easy to create them. It's easy to apply and turn them off, back on. It's really easy to understand which model view you're switching to and which one you need to go find, because there's an image of it right there. Like I said previously, it does include all of the PMI dimensions that you would normally have in your model view. And another thing they've added is that you can create drawings from the model view. So if you have a model view that's completed, but you need to make a drawing, you don't have to do a bunch of extra work. You can actually just drag the model view onto your drawing, and it will create the 2D version in the sketch or in the drawing environment for you. And as that kind of implies, the model view palette is accessible from the drafting environment. You can, when you're in your drafts, you just click the model view palette, and it will show up with the 3D images that you created in the part environment or assembly environment. Another new thing here. Now, the concept of notes isn't new, or text box annotations. However, it was fairly reserved for the 2D drafting environment. So they've added the text box annotation to 3D. And they've added a note library as well. The note library allows you to take your frequently used notes or text boxes, annotations, and save them all in one place. And it makes it really easy to access them later. You can see in the bottom image here that there is 2 saved ones. So that way, all you have to do is just click and then select the one you want to add to the model, and then click OK. Of course, you can also create new ones or ones that change every time. But for the ones that you are using constantly, the note library will make that a lot faster. Of course, the text annotations are also available in 3D now. So the note library, or the library of notes that you create, can be used both in 2D and 3D environments. They can be added to model views alongside their dimensions, or you could have a model view with only annotations if you wanted. It also gives you a preview of placement, and it makes the notes, they're always parallel to the screen, regardless of which direction you're viewing it from, to make it a lot easier to read. If you flip your model upside down, you don't have to turn your head to read it. In regards to the PMI and also the value-based licensing, we do have a couple of webinars in the future that you can see here. We're going to take a deeper dive into both of these subjects, a lot more of the specifics. I didn't want to take up too much time with, just those topics. There's a lot that they've added for PMI. Those were some of the big things they added. And then for value-based licensing, there's actually a lot of things available through value-based licensing that aren't necessarily new in 2023, but they are available using value-based licensing now. So those are the two webinars we have coming up. If you're interested in hearing about either one more, feel free to reach out and we can get you signed up for those. So in simulation, which again, this is again another program that would be, or another environment that would be accessible through the value-based licensing. They added a few things. Actually, we at CamLogic are very excited about some of these, most of these, honestly. We do a lot of simulation here, and I know the engineers that I work with, our designers, they are quite excited because these could save them a lot of time and effort. The first one is simulation with convergent models. So you're able to do simulations on mesh models without having to do reverse engineering. You can use the existing faces or existing geometry and do simulation right on that. You can remesh your mesh and it will just do the simulation right there. There's 3 different places where you usually find your mesh models. The first would be optimized or generatively designed models. So if you run a generative design study and the results that it gives you are going to be partially a mesh. The original or what remains of the original design will still be VREP data. However, afterwards, the result is probably going to be a hybrid model. An example would be this yellow model here. These like flat faces, these are still VREP data, but all of these strut shaped pieces are going to be mesh, and you can see that with the zoom up here. Another place that you're going to find it is just converted mesh models that were converted into, this sort of design. This might be what you get if you were to download just a generic model from the internet. And then there's, of course, the STL model. We use these a lot here at CamLogic. We get this with scan data and things like that. If you ever do 3D scanning, you'll usually get an STL output. And it just saves us a lot of time if we don't have to create our solid model from it first. We can test things, we can run simulations, repeat simulations, and we don't have to come up, and recreate the model in CAD first. Another addition is the body mesh is now supported in the assembly environment. So body mesh was a feature that was added in 2022. However, it was only for the part environment. It allows for a much better mesh of the model that you have. It makes things, makes your simulations a lot more accurate. It makes it so that certain entities are not present and that would normally cause issues. You can kind of see this example in the top right as an example of what it can help with. So this little ledge here with 2 little faces in it, this would be a pretty big problem and it would cause some inaccuracies in your simulation. But with body mesh, it solves the problem and makes it a little bit, quite a bit more accurate. There's also some options now, which were not available previously, to change the parameters for body mesh. You can choose the points around a circle or the proximity and the number of elements across a face, things like that. You have a lot more control over how the body mesh meshes your model, allowing you to get much more specific on the simulation results you're looking for. Another new feature is reusing existing meshes. This can also be a pretty big time saver if you're doing larger simulations. So a lot of the time when you are doing simulation, if you run one, you'll notice in the progress bar that it'll tell you whether it's loading, meshing, or solving. And if your model's pretty big or has a lot of complicated geometry, you'll also notice that a lot of that time is spent meshing. Well, now you can reuse the mesh you've already done with a previous study. So if I've run a study and I want to do a different kind on the same model, I can duplicate my study and it will ask if I want to create a copy with mesh. If I click yes, it'll already have the mesh in my new study, and I can add the parameters, the new parameters that I want in my second study. And when I click solve, I don't have to wait for it to mesh again. It'll go straight to the solving portion. And depending on your model, that could be significant. Several minutes, many minutes, I should say. And of course, this all depends on the size of your model, but even with the smallest of models, you always have to mesh, and it's a time saver. there's one feature in the electrical portion of the portfolio that I wanted to mention. I think this is pretty big because it addresses one of the biggest challenges for electrical. So there's this built-in portal to access electrical parts with symbols and all of the electrical data necessary and get them from 3D Find It. You can access it straight from the wiring design or harness design programs. It opens a window, allows you to search for electrically defined parts, and after you made your search, you can download all of the it downloads all of the necessary data and symbols as well. So at the moment, actually, this is probably outdated now. I haven't checked it, but there's at least 20,000 parts already in this library that are ready to go with the electric parameters. And more parts are always being added. They have plans to continue adding parts. They kind of go in an order with the most common parts or most frequently asked about parts. And those will be updated and added to this library as time moves on. One of the other things, or one thing I do have to mention is in the if you also want the 3D environment for that electrical part, the 3D model does need to be downloaded from the solid edge side rather than the wiring or harness design. But the geometry is still there. So you can go get your electrical information, download that to the wiring or harness design, and then you can go get the 3D through solid edge. Next, in manufacturing, we have a couple of interesting changes, or at least ones that I really liked. The first one is these filler parts. This is within 2D nesting. So, and this is kind of an example. They're not quite the same sheet, but basically you can define parts that aren't really part of the job you were planning to do, and you can add them to fill out what's left of your sheet, or you can have it fill out just the rest of your nest. The difference being if you want to leave, the last 4 feet, or you don't want to fill the rest of the entire sheet, it would only add them in, maybe up to this point, so that you're not eating up the rest of the entire sheet. Yeah, basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. These parts fill out where they can. You can see where it just kind of fits them in, and it just allows, if you have something that you want to create, you can just use up what isn't being used by the job you were going to do anyway. I thought this was pretty neat. It's a cool use of of the tool, and yeah, just it helps use up some of that extra material. Another really cool change, or not change, new feature. This is in Solid Edge Cam Pro. Are these machine simulation kits? They are full models of your machine that includes 3, 4, and 5-axis machines. You can do simulation using the machines, and the entire machine will display exactly what it's going to do through the process. There's currently, there actually might be more now, but when we checked, there was 35 machines available. This was a couple of months ago when Siemens informed us about it. However, they planned to have 50 available by the end of the year. So it's probably somewhere in between those two at this point. Basically, if your machine, or if you can download the machine that you want to use from PostHub, and it will have and it will download the 3D model and place it inside Cam Pro, so that when you run or create your tool path or the procedure you want to do, you can watch that happen on the full machine. It's the whole machine is there. Let me see if I placed I didn't add the show of the screenshot of a bunch of the machines, but you can kind of see an example of it on the right there. It's got the jaw, it has the part that you're making, it has, you know, the spindle, the tool, all of it. The whole machine is there, and you can make sure there's no collisions. You can make sure there's no interference. And again, the license that you get will give you access to all of the machines of that type. So if you have 3-axis, you get all of the 3-axis machines. If you have 4-axis, you get all the 4-axis, etc. And on the off, if by chance the machine that you really need or the machine that you want to use is not already available on PostHub, there is a form they have that allows you to submit a request, and so that they can create, you know, the machine you're looking for. You know, they are creating, like I said, they're trying to get to 50 different machines by the end of the year. So there's a pretty good chance that the machine you want is available. Something I also wanted to bring up is the Solid Edge 2023 update training. This is something that covers all of the new features within Solid Edge 2023. We'll go into a much deeper dive than some of the things that I went through today. We'll go through each and every feature on a technical level. And of course, this would be tailored to all the things we cover would be tailored so that it's relevant to you and what you want to learn about. So feel free to contact us if you're interested.